Hi, we're here talking to Geoffrey Lipman, who's Assistant Secretary General at the United Nations World Tourism Organization. The UNWTO sent an open letter today to our G20 leaders meeting in London for the summit. Now they're calling on travel and tourism to be factored into the internationally coordinated action trying to stave off a global recession. But there's issues about the environment that need to be considered as well. Geoffrey, welcome.
Good afternoon. Nice to be here.
Okay, well, for my first question, let me just simply ask you, why are British airports quite so bad?
Well, I think one of the answers to that you're seeing in the action of the regulatory authority to split airports away from the BAA. I think a second reason is that despite a lot of talk about customer service, the main driver has been profits and shareholder value. And therefore, from the viewpoint of people going through British airports, what you tend to get is a terrific shopping centre, which is fine because it makes money, which reduces airport fees, which is the argument. But maybe the balance hasn't been right between the shopping centre approach and the customer service. And then there is this intervention in recent years around security. I just don't think anybody's got that right yet. There's not enough people at the security systems, there's not enough machines. You shouldn't have to stand in long lines, however important it's an invasion of the nice, smooth travel journey. And they haven't had the emphasis on them to respond to the customer requirements ahead of the financial return requirements.
Is anyone getting that right, the security aspect? Are there any sort of examples we can take from other countries?
Well, you can always look at places like Singapore. China, I must say, going increasingly through the Far Eastern airports, they have done it better, but they have tended to have a lot of people because labour is cheaper. Right. They've built a lot of new airports from the ground up, so you can put more space in for those facilities.
Okay. I want to talk slightly about recession. Your job working sort of as the Assistant General Secretary of the UN World Tourism Organization puts you in a unique position during a recession, doesn't it? Because tourism is presumably...
Because my job's protected.
Right. Okay, among other things, because your job is protected. But also because, I mean, I would presume that holidays and tourism are pretty much the first luxury to go from people's shopping lists as soon as they start feeling the pinch.
Actually, the first thing to go tends to be business travel, because businesses are very sensitive. The clever ones see that they're going to have to cut back on costs quickly, and one of the things you can control is the travel budget. So in a way, that's the first indicator. And yes, then holidays. Another thing in that sense depends on when the recession is perceived, which I'll explain that. This recession has been very complicated because if you take the first 6 months of 2008, when most of the holidays in the Northern Hemisphere were booked and spent, there wasn't the perception of a recession at all. And in fact, the American economy only declared itself in recession in the last quarter of last year, but with effect from 12 months earlier. So in other words, we'd actually been in a recessionary phase for the first half of the year. Nobody had identified it. So consumer confidence wasn't so bad. As in the second half of 2008, and it just kind of ground to a halt with all of the mortgages and the banks and the AIGs, and you get it 24 hours on 7 on the television, and suddenly you feel it very quickly. That's when the business started to go down. The last 2 months of the year was disastrous. Then I think that's when people would say, holidays this coming year, I'm not so sure. So what's interesting is what's going to happen during the May, June, July period of this year. The bookings that we've looked at, we're looking at the Amadeus system, who have some deal where they get access to all of the global bookings. And we're seeing for 2009, January, February, March, we're beginning to see the same levels of bookings as back in 2006. So it's a big, big drop.
And how's the industry going to be able to deal with that, do you think? Are we going to see sort of airlines folding? Is it going to get that serious? Or?
You know, they say the same way that porcupines make love. Very, very, very carefully. I think the smart people have spotted it coming. You know, the sectors have different challenges. Airlines are able to do certain things that you can't move a hotel, but you can slow down operations on a dodgy route, a route which isn't producing funds. You can slow back orders. The manufacturers have the problem then, and particularly when they don't have the credit lines. So the industry responds in different ways. The airlines responded early, and they had the benefit of the big drop in the last half of last year of the fuel price. They were really, their projections were very bad, so they made some serious moves, and then the fuel price started to go down. So they were kind of in step. Hotels have more difficulty. They're all fighting not to get into a price war, which almost inevitably comes as it lasts longer and longer. That's UN speak, by the way. We say things like that. I mean, let me go straight to the heart of your question. I just don't agree with you. This industry not only can become green, including the airlines, in the time frame that people are talking about for the economic transformation, which is 20, 30, 40 years. It's not tomorrow.
Sure.
Not only can they go green, they will make money going green. There will be government funds made available to help them go green. There'll be more funds available for the poorest countries and the smallest players to go green. So there isn't really a dichotomy. It's just a psychological sort of impasse that has been made more visible because it's a nice thing to campaign about on basically all around the airlines, and secondly because historically the industry has been very slow to recognise that it has to become environmentally responsible. But we got through that kind of the last 10, 15 years, and that's why in our statement we are saying we represent 5% of the greenhouse gases. We've probably done the best analysis of that with UN agencies of anybody. We're pretty sure it's 5%. Cities are responsible for 80% of the greenhouse gases. You know, livestock's responsible through methane emission of 10 to 15%. Forest degradation is responsible for 25%. So 5% for tourism and transport, of which 2 to 3% is from aviation. It's important, but in context it's not so significant. 2 or 3 years ago, little was being done about this, but the pressures which have been built up of the need to do something about climate change have actually forced the aircraft manufacturers, the engine manufacturers, the airlines themselves, the hotel companies to realize that they have to move with the times. And you're seeing a lot of use of clean biofuel experimentation. You're seeing a lot of advanced engine changes. And then probably there's some guys in a garage somewhere, like the Wright brothers, tinkering with something, which in 2 or 3 years' time will make a breakthrough. So I don't think it's such a dramatic impasse. It makes good TV, but I don't think it's reality.